Okay, I want to walk through just a couple of early 19th century texts. I think it's very important to show you where our knowledge of 19th century diet and health is coming from. So original sources are key to doing that. This was originally going to be part of the sort of the background preview lecture on natural diet, and it just didn't need to be part of that introductory video, so I'm just doing the separate one here. So very quickly, there's just four texts here. The first one I want to look at, and they all illustrate something a little different about early 19th century medicine. So I've picked these out specifically for a couple of passages that I've highlighted. I just want to show you very briefly here. This first one, a treatise on domestic medicine, prevention and cure of diseases, regimen, and simple medicine. This is from 1812. If we scan the contents here just very briefly, you can see what it's talking about: general causes of diseases, children, diseased parents, unwholesome air, ailment, exercise, passions, evacuations. It sounds very Galenic in a lot of ways. It sounds very much like classical medicine. And skimming through the preface here, we don't need to look at that. What I want to look at is the introduction here. The improvements in medicine since the revival of learning have not kept pace with the other arts. The reason is obvious. Medicine has been studied by too few. Let me zoom in a little bit. Except by those who intend to live by it as a business, such either from mistaken zeal or the honor to raise their own importance. They've tried to disguise and conceal the art. And so this is a very interesting sort of commentary on university physicians who have gone through medical training. Medical authors have generally written in a foreign language. So this idea that medicine is becoming obscured, I didn't mean to unhighlight it there. Medicine is being obscured by, the standardization of curriculum and medical knowledge and university training that we've been talking about. And this is a book, as you saw on the title page, of domestic medicine. This is people just at home should be able to figure out what to do for their own health. We saw aspects of this in the Shapin reading from last week, and here again you see it in this 1812 book, complaining that physicians really don't do very much. And he's talking about university elite physicians, right? Not just kind of everyday physicians who try to help people and get paid for their services. This is people like Cheney. Very few of the valuable discoveries in medicine have been made by physicians. They have been either by the effect of chance or necessity, or have been opposed by the faculty. And the faculty here means the university faculty, the official keepers of medical power. Again, this sort of complaint about physicians making medicine more difficult. And this book, Domestic Medicine, again, this is early 18th century, so it's a full century after Cheney. The average physician, the average family physician, the average person should be able to understand medicine and practice it on himself, herself effectively. Okay, that's 1812. I want to go back a year. Okay, return to nature or defense of the vegetable regimen. I've mentioned how physicians have tried to understand what a natural diet is, and that there's a lot of sort of starting points that people might take about what a natural diet should be. And this is not just physicians having these arguments, but a whole range of people. 1811, London. The title is clear enough, Defensive Vegetable Diet, so obviously you can tell what it's going to do. So Sylvester Graham is a big proponent of a vegetable diet, as we'll read about. He's writing in the 1830s, so he's kind of following on this tradition of vegetarianism, which is kind of what the reading for Wednesday is about. I love this beginning here. The first chapter in this book on the return to nature of a vegetarian diet, the first thing is about disease. Can it be expected that even those that those even who suffer from sickness and suffer seriously will have fortitude enough to abandon, upon the plainest evidence, the luxuries to which they have been accustomed, and be no longer betrayed by the savory scents of fish and meat and all the masquerade of high seasoned cookery. It's very hard to give up things that we like meat, for instance, but it's causing lots of disease. It's causing lots of suffering. So we need to pay attention to diet. Man is created and placed in a garden abounding with fruits and vegetables, with which he is commanded to sustain himself. Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. It should be your meat. Right? Goes on to talk about Adam and Eve and how all the evils in the world can be traced to transgressions of Adam and Eve and sort of getting away from this vegetarian diet that was ordained by God. Of the flesh of animals, then, in this view of the supposed fable, our first father was ordered not to eat and was warned that in his failure of his obedience should surely die. Right? So here, clearly, a religious biblical argument for why we're supposed to eat only vegetables. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit to 1824. Here we go, 1824, Lectures on Digestion and Diet. I think it's very interesting and very telling that the first page, right, lecture 1 of this book is about physiology, right? The title is Lectures on Disease and Diet, Lectures on Digestion and Diet. Starts off by talking about physiology, so you can see the importance, the rise of physiology, understanding the mechanisms and structures, forms of the body that Cheney was starting to get into. Obviously, that field has evolved in the century after Cheney. Physiology has no slight claim on your attention. It presents the noblest views of design and combination. Lecture 2 on diet. So after introducing all of the physiology stuff in the first sort of book, the first big section of this book, it gets into lecture 2, talking about natural diet. How do we know what to eat? Why seek for information when instinct is our guide? Does not nature indicate the kind and quantity of food suited to every creature? She does, but we are not in a state of nature. This is brilliant. Civilization and luxury have depraved the stomach and perverted the taste. Habits of life, purely artificial, are successively formed and by daily repetition acquire a power which stifles the call of instinct. Like, our civilized society has made it impossible for us to know what to eat naturally. Our instinct is unsuited for this modern world that we live in. This is 1824. So we can't rely on what might be our instinct. There's other texts that argue that we've never had an instinct, that man is the only animal, humans are the only animal that don't have an instinct. We have to learn what to eat and what not to eat. The varieties we noticed in the diet of brutes. We talked about the Enlightenment view of other cultures and civilizations and understanding them, ranking them. In terms of diet, here we have a very clear formulation of that. The varieties noticed in the diet of brutes are not found in a state of nature and rarely apply to a large number of species. When we ascend to man, right, so more advanced societies like Western Europe, we find, according to them, of course, we find greater varieties, remarkable contrasts. Those two in the thousands of tribes and nations. Man is a native of the world, inhabiting every clime. We live everywhere. We should eat everything. Very much in contrast to the book I just looked at in The Return to Nature, arguing for a vegetarian diet. Here, we're arguing for an omnivorous diet. Look at the rice of the Hindu, the dates of the African, the figs of the Greek, the currants of the Cephalonian, the animal diet of the shepherds, the putrid fish of people who live on the banks of the Orange River, the raw flesh and warm blood which feed the Russians. Natural history, studying the history of the world, the history of nature, exhibits man as an omnivorous animal. in one region on flesh and another region on vegetables. It is also apparent that in low grades of civilization, inhabiting the cold and temperate regions, he prefers flesh. Sorry, it's a little small. He prefers flesh to vegetables, right? So not arguing for a vegetable diet at all. In fact, saying we eat everything, but the lower civilizations prefer flesh, right? So it's more cultured to be a vegetarian, but it's not our sort of biblical duty in this text, unlike the other one. Functions, here we are. All right. Experience can alone supply the want of instinct. And unless we assume this as the basis of all our inquiries upon the subject of diet, our theories, however refined and supported by chemical and physiological researches, will prove but will-o'-the-wisps and lead us astray into numerous and difficult embarrassments. We have to have knowledge of diet through experience. And what can we learn through experience? Well, we learn that headache, flatulency, hypochondriasis, and 1,000 nameless ills have arisen from the too prevailing fashion of loading our tables with that host of French entremets and hors d'oeuvres, which have so unfortunately usurped the roast beef of old England. So very much this sort of cultural comparison of when we have the good old English roast beef, we're hearty and healthy. When we have these frou-frou, frilly French entremets and hors d'oeuvres, we have all kinds of problems, headache and gas, and we don't feel good. We eat too many things. We eat too often. We're eating this sort of this foreign food, right? And is very obviously a class distinction here in terms of what we're supposed to be eating. Again, the rise of physiology, and we're starting to see chemistry here. This is 1829, this text. Chemistry and physiology have advanced with rapid strides. Pathology, the study of the function and structure of things in the body, has thrown off the mystic veil which the humoral doctrine has invested in her. The language of medical science has undergone corresponding revolutions. So you see this sort of looking to the future of now we can know more about diet from the actual structure and functions and investigations of the body, along with chemistry. So you get a sense in 1829 how much the dietary world is changing in terms of how we're studying things. We really get into this next week, but this is right before Graham is publishing his books, and you can see all of the different sources from which people are deriving what a proper diet should be, right? Whether it's religious sources, whether it's physiology, whether it's pathology, chemistry, whether it's sort of a cultural comparison, all of these different ways of understanding what a diet should be. Hopefully seeing these texts, this is really way too fast, but just seeing these 4 texts and how these physicians talk about what a natural diet should be or what a good diet should be, and their motivations gives us a sense for the sort of the range and the complexity of early 19th century medicine. Lots of different opinions. Okay, that's it. I'll talk to you later.